Today, I want to add keyboard navigation to this application. Here we have a list of blog posts. And right now, to navigate to these blog posts, you have to scroll through them, you have to click on them. And I want the focus of today's video to be adding keyboard navigation to this list. And the idea being, with a few keystrokes, I should be able to navigate to any one of these blog posts. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to do is I want to open up the post index template. And if we scroll down, somewhere around here, right here, we see this table. And this is a table that lists all the posts. So this is where I want to add some styling to show when you've used a keyboard to highlight a post. So let's add some classes to this row to show what a highlighted post would look like. So I'm going to give it a left border and then a border width of 2. And then I'm going to make it a blue border. Let's save this. Okay, and we can see this border on the left. It's showing up on all the posts, but this is just to give you an idea that when we highlight a post, we'll have this blue bar on the left as a visual indicator. I think the next thing to do is add some logic so that only the highlighted post has that blue bar. So we'll add an if statement. And we'll say if the post that we're iterating over is equal to the navigated post. And that's a variable that we're going to use to track which post the user has navigated to using their keyboard. So if this post equals the navigated post, we'll use a blue border. Otherwise, we'll use a transparent border. And now none of the posts in our list have that blue bar because there is no navigated post. Okay, so now let's work on the API for actually using the keyboard to navigate through these posts. And remember, we want to use a declarative API here, so we're going to restrict ourselves to only using this template. So let's come up here and let's just explore what that API might look like. I think we can make a keyboard press component, and that would take a key, so we'll pass in the J key, and that would take an on press, which would be an action, and this action is going to mutate the navigated post. So this is the sort of API I think we want to end up with, and we'll work on this on press action later, but the J key will be to navigate down through the list. Okay, once we save that file, if we come back to the browser, we see that our post list is no longer rendering. And if we open up the console, well, we can see that keyboard press is not a helper. And that's because we haven't created this component. So let's go create that right now. All right, let's navigate to our components directory. And we'll add a new component called keyboard press. And we'll make this an Ember component. And now that we've created this component, our post list is back to rendering. Now let's wire up this keyboard component. We want to pass in a key, and then when that key is pressed, we want to fire this on press action. So this is going to be the public API of this component. Now, to wire up the keyboard events, we could set up our own event listeners. However, there is an excellent Ember add-on called Ember Keyboard, and we're going to use that inside of this component to make handling these events easy. Let's check out that Ember Keyboard component. We'll grab this command to install it and install it into our application. Okay, let's restart the server. So the way that we use the Ember Keyboard add-on is that it provides us with a mix-in. So let's come up to the top of the file and import that. We'll import ek mixin from Ember Keyboard. And then we'll go ahead and add that mix-in into our component. Now we need to wire up our component to use the functionality provided by Ember Keyboard. So in the did insert element hook, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to set keyboard activated to true. And what this does is this tells the mixin we just added to our component that it should start listening for key events. Now we want to say whenever our passed in key is pressed, it should fire the onPress action. Let's grab the key and the action that were passed into this component and put them in local variables. So we'll do let key equals this.getKey and let action equals this.get onPress. Now we can use Ember Keyboard to fire the action whenever the key is pressed. And that API looks like this. You can say this.on, key down, our key, fire the action. And this key down is a helper provided by Ember Keyboard. So we'll come up here and import that. And so just to recap what's going on in this component, we're going to activate the keyboard. And then whenever the key that was passed into this component is pressed, we're going to fire the action. Now, if I come back to the browser, I get this error message in the console that says J is not a valid key name. And this J is coming from the post template because J is the key that we're passing into the component. And what's happening here is that Ember Keyboard has a naming convention and the string J does not match that convention. So we need to go ahead and change this. So what we'll do is change this to key J. And this is the convention that Ember Keyboard uses. Okay, so now it looks like that error has gone away. However, when I press the J key, nothing happens. So let's work on this action. We want to say that when we press the J key, we're going to set a navigated post. And just to get us started, let's say that when we press that J key, we're going to set the navigated post to the first object in that list of posts. Okay, so now when I press the J key, I can see that first post gets highlighted. Pretty cool. Of course, when I press the J key again, it doesn't move down to the second post, it just keeps that first post highlighted. So let's work on the navigation part of this. Instead of highlighting the first post, what we can do is we can use a helper from Ember Composable Helpers called next. And what this looks like is we'll say next navigated post in the list of posts. So this is a nice little API. It will say find the navigated post in our list of posts and select the next one. So as we hit the J key, we'll keep moving that navigated post to the next item in the list. Let's go ahead and see what this looks like. Okay, so as I'm hitting J, nothing is happening. And that's because when this page starts off, there is no navigated post. So when you say the next navigated post, well, navigated post is null, so there is no next navigated post. So what we can do is we can add a conditional here. And we'll say if there is a navigated post, then select the next navigated post, else use that first post in the list. And now when I hit the J key, the first post will be highlighted. And then when I hit the J key again, it will highlight the next post, which is our second post. And you can see as I press the J key, we move through the list. Okay. So next, let's do the same thing, but for navigating backwards through the list. And we'll use the K key for that. So we'll copy this line. And instead of the J key, we'll use K. And then instead of K selecting the next post, we'll have it select the previous post. And if there is no navigated post, we're going to start it off on the last object in the list. All right, let's give this a shot. I can hit J, go down, and then hit K to come back up. So J through the list, and then K back up. Pretty cool. Now, of course, we want to be able to perform an action with the navigated post. So as I navigate through this list, I want to be able to hit the Enter key and end up on that post page. Let's use our keyboard press shortcut to make that happen. We can say keyboard press, key, enter, on press, action, open post, and we'll open the navigated post. And before we save this, we need to add this action to our controller. We'll jump down to the bottom of the file, and there should be a few actions down here. And we'll add a new one for open post. And because this is a controller, we can use transition to route. And this will be the post route. And we're going to pass in that post that our action was called with. All right, let's give this a shot. So it looks like I messed up my template and forgot an equals sign here. So let's come back and add that. Okay, great. I can navigate through this list, scroll down a little. And when I hit enter, I end up on this post page. Pretty cool. So before we wrap up, I want to talk about this keyboard press component. And I tend to find that every Ember app I work on has some variant of this. I think that keyboard shortcuts can really improve the usability of an application, but oftentimes they get left out. You know, they're not present in mockups or designs, and generally they're kind of hard. You have to wire up all these event listeners to get them working. But with this component, with this keyboard press component, it's pretty easy to add keyboard events. I mean, look at this API. It's so simple. And that's why I really like components like this. Small declarative components that are composable with the rest of your application that improve usability. So if you've ever wanted to put keyboard navigation into your application, give this API a try. One more thing before we wrap up. I'd love to hear what you think of these actions. You know, this is a really long action that's composing a bunch of template helpers. It's using mute, if, next, and previous. So would you keep this code in the template? Or would you name this action and put it on the controller? I'd love to hear what you would do in this situation. There's a tweet button at the bottom of this page, so just send us a message about how you would approach this code.